Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Yeah. It's just me today. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us. We broadcast 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Right here on Genesis Communications Network. And if you'd like to listen, you can listen to the archives. You can listen live. There are plenty of great broadcasters right here at GCNlive.com. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to listen on your telephone, there's an easy way to do that. Here's the number, 712-770-9418. 712-770-9418. If you'd like to call and it's on topic, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Okay, so today will be, I'm going to tell you what I think and what I know about the corona panic. The corona panic is the term that I coined right here on USA Prepares. And what I'm about to tell you is pretty serious. So let me start with this. 35 years ago, I had one of those performance appraisals, also known as a performance review, my annual review at one of the banks where I was employed. And during my annual performance review, the senior bank officer said to me, he was my boss at the time, he said to me, Vinny, you do a really good job, but you don't work well with stupid people. And I've said this before on the air. And I've got to tell you, he was partially correct. He really was. I don't work well with stupid people. I also don't work well with careless or reckless people. So when I say he was, partially correct, he didn't include the careless or reckless people part. My new term for those careless, reckless, stupid people is GDP, generally dumb public. And it's kind of catching on. And they are going to get a lot of us killed. I'm starting to lose respect for people whom I once respected due to their embrace of what we have coined here at USA Prepares as situational morality. I'm starting to lose respect for people I once respected because of their situational ethics. People who think that it's bad for people to do certain things, but it's okay for them to do it. I'm starting to lose respect for our commander-in-chief because he uses profanity. Frankly, it is very difficult for me to respect anyone who can't just use their native language to express their thoughts without profanity. He got a blot of ink on his clothing, and he uses the F word. Really? Am I supposed to trust leadership from that? Now, I did not vote for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for anybody. And I don't plan on voting for anybody. I think, if you think about it, they call it a poll. You go to the polls. That means, what's your opinion? What would you like? If you could have your way, what would you like? But the Electoral College really makes the decision. So does your vote count? No, I don't think so. So I'm not going to vote again. Now, I used to vote. And when we had selections, and I would have to hold my nose because both candidates of the major two parties smelled, I'd write myself in. For governor, president, I would. Senator, I would. Because I think anybody who is honest could do a better job than the choices of political liars we have in front of us. Class, this is a very serious broadcast today. If you can't handle knowing what is happening with respect to coronavirus, please turn your dial to another program or do something else. I will tell you what I know, and I'll tell you what I think, and I will differentiate between the two. Yes, I said what I know. I know information that I'm not supposed to know. And I will not tell you where I learned that information. But I learned it firsthand. Coronavirus, I've coined the term corona panic almost since the beginning. Many people in the media, the independent media, are discussing the corona panic as if it is a hoax, a fraud, a false flag, a way to influence the selection or election of political candidates. Those people who call each other names, those who swear at each other, those people on stage. The ones who don't act presidential but want to be president, those people. So many in the media, we can call it the alternative media, you can call it the independent media. Many are discussing the political aspects of the coronavirus, which is now the corona panic, which is now the corona pandemic. Some have even said it's not a pandemic. Well, actually, there's no question about it. It is a pandemic. Pandemic is a disease that grows in numbers and spreads across the planet. That's an easy way of looking at what is a pandemic. So if you have the regular colds or the regular flu and the numbers don't change much, that's not a pandemic. This thing is growing. It bothers me that broadcasters have been wasting time, valuable time that you cannot get back with the whodunit topics. Forget about whodunit for now. Forget about it. Focus on what are you going to do to survive this thing? Because after this is all over and the bodies have been buried, then there'll be time to go play whack-a-mole and then figure out where they are, the people who did this to us. But you have to prepare to survive it. We are, and we have been in the second Great Depression for several years now. I stand by my statements of years ago. Now we're starting to see the quickening. The quickening is the collapse of financial markets at an increasing rate. It's actually the collapse of a lot of things at an increasing rate. And that's called the quickening. Art Bell used that term. Art Bell was the finest broadcaster, in my opinion, on radio. He's way better than any of these people that we have now. Way better. And I use the word broadcaster. I know a guy who calls himself a talk show host. And I guess that's what he is. He's a talk show host. That's what they do. They talk. I don't look at USA Prepares as a talk show. I really don't. I look at it as an educational worldwide broadcast. That's why I have termed the people who are on the air with me instructors. That's why I call myself an instructor, because we are teachers. All of us at USA Prepares are volunteers. We want to teach what we think you should pay attention to. Now, you don't have to pay attention. You can turn that dial anytime you want. We have no control of it, nor do we want to have any control of it. Nor do we want to be the be-all and end-all for everyone. We are only interested in working with students. I do not have respect for listeners. Listeners are like people who go to ball games and they watch. They watch the ball games. And when they're all done watching the ball games, what have they accomplished? Not too much. They've spent some money. They've had some beer. They've drained out some of the beer. They've increased the trash pile, with their disposable, consumable devices like cups and hats and, things that end up in the landfill. And they really think it's important to go to these games. Those are the equivalent of listeners. For weeks now, we have seen many days where the Dow Jones Industrial Average has fallen, I'll just say roughly 1,000 points per day, from the previous day. One day, the collapse was about 2,300 points. Yesterday, the market was halted again. It ended 2,352 points lower than the previous day. In 30 days, the Dow lost 30%. Now think about that. Your pensions are evaporating right in front of your eyes. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 10% yesterday. That means that whatever you had invested in the Dow Jones, in the stock market, probably lost somewhere around 30% in the last 30 days and probably somewhere around 10% yesterday. Gasoline prices are in a steep decline. Now, some people may think that's wonderful. Well, let me put this in perspective. I bought diesel fuel for the farm about a week ago. The wholesale price of diesel fuel today, about a week later, is half of what it was when I bought it. Half. Gasoline wholesale prices in New York Harbor right now, 79 cents a gallon. Overnight, it dropped 21%. When we come back, I'm going to try to put that in perspective, what that means. You're going to be shocked. We'll be right back. So it's just me today. And as I mentioned, gasoline wholesale prices in New York Harbor right now is 79 cents a gallon. It was $1 even a gallon yesterday. It dropped 21% overnight. Now, if you consider the taxes on gasoline, which averages a little over 60 cents per gallon, the state, federal, and local taxes all added in, about 61 cents per gallon. Think about that. The price of gasoline wholesale is 79 cents, and the tax on that is 61 cents. It's almost as much tax as it is for the product. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine 100% tax on gasoline? Gold and silver are both down. Should they be down? This is a time of panic. People are panicking, but they're down. Gold and silver are down. They should be up. They are manipulated. We all know that. Sellers of gold and silver are in panic mode. I know this. I said, I know this. I didn't say I think this. I said, I know this. And I'd like you to consider believing what I say. You don't have to. But when I say today, during this broadcast today, that I know, that means I know. That means I have witnessed what is happening from a very, very close perspective, if not there. And I won't differentiate when I was there and what I got from a member of my family who was there, who I absolutely positively trust. But right now, there are people selling their gold and silver, physical gold and silver. I'm talking about physical coins in gold and silver. They're in panic mode. They're dumping their holdings at their local dealers. I know this for a fact. Why are they doing that? Our farm is on lockdown. When I say lockdown, I mean lockdown. I'm going to read again this very short email that I sent to instructors, and I don't do this. I don't bother people with, look at this, look. Look what I found. Look at me. Look at me. I'm showing you something that I found on the internet. I don't do that. It's very rare that I do that. Only if it's something that is relevant to a discussion here at USA Prepares will I do that. And it's rare. So here is the email that I wrote to instructors. Not to students, just to instructors. It says, quote, to USA Prepares instructors, we've been following the corona panic on air every day since January. As you know, it's real. Numerous phone calls from radio listeners, yes, that's what I said, listeners, asking to visit and meet me have been answered with, the gate is locked. This has been going on for weeks. The gate is really locked. We are not entertaining guests. None. We have taken precautions at the farm and are on lockdown for our animal safety and ours. The telephone still works, though. You may want to consider doing the same. Vincent. That's short and sweet, right? What I'm saying is don't come here. And I mean it. There is no reason for anybody to come to our farm now. We are closed. The mechanical and automotive services that we provide, that stopped. Because we don't know where the people who, the customers, if you will, have been. We don't know who has sat in the seats of their vehicles. We don't know. So we're not getting in them. We're not taking any chances. People are now beginning to panic, but only those in the know. The GDP is oblivious. Disinformation and misinformation abound. We'll be right back. As I mentioned, class, people are beginning to panic. And we said it would happen. Over a week ago, we said that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week, people would begin to panic. And they did. They did. I made some phone calls to advise just a couple people who I didn't think knew what was happening to go shopping last weekend. I don't believe they did. And you would think that I would receive phone calls saying, boy, I really appreciate that. You were right. People are panicking. And the stores are out of toilet paper and paper towels and so forth. You'd think I'd get calls back. I haven't gotten any of those calls. I've made checkup calls, and I don't even get the phone doesn't even get answered. I don't know what's going on. But Sam's Club is out of all sizes of domestically produced powdered milk. Now, I mentioned that this week. And I got a call early this morning before the broadcast that it's available at Walmart. I went to Walmart and it's out of stock. So it might have been available for a couple minutes and it's out of stock. I'm talking about domestic brand powdered milk. Now, you might be able to get some that's made, in Europe. But if you want reasonably priced American powdered milk, it's going to be tough to find. Now, why would that be tough to find? Because it lasts a long time. And some people who are getting it, meaning understand what's happening, are buying those kinds of food items. And chicken noodle soup is out of stock at Walmart.com. How do I know? Well, yesterday, right after the broadcast, I met with the family. I said, shoot, we should get some Jewish penicillin. And that's what it's called. I mean, it works. It really does. And that's a kind of a nickname for chicken noodle soup. I'm not making a slight against the Jews. That's just what it's called. And I think it is a great substitute. So it could be Irish penicillin too, or Italian penicillin. But I went to Walmart. Oh, actually, I typed in Lipton chicken noodle soup to see what I could find. And it took me to Amazon. It took me to Walmart. I found it at Walmart. And I clicked 10 boxes, and I went to go to check it out, and it said, oops. It literally said, oops. Something went wrong. So I clicked back, and it said only 7 in stock. So I clicked 7, and I clicked checkout. Oops, something went wrong, out of stock. So in the time that it took me, less than 10 seconds, to change the cart number from 10 to 7, they're out of stock. If you try to buy it right now, you'll find it's out of stock. Here's something pretty interesting. So I went to Amazon during the break, and you can get it. You can get Lipton Soup Secrets noodle soup with real chicken broth. Now, there's 5 4.5-ounce boxes. 5 boxes. Each box is 4.5 ounces. Now, these are the same. This is an equivalent of what you can buy at Aldi, or you used to be able to buy at Aldi before they ran out, for 85 cents a box. On Amazon right now, you can get it. They have one of them for $29.99 for 5 little boxes of Lipton's chicken noodle soup mix. Now, each box has 2 little pouches. And they're a little over 2 ounces apiece. I'm not exaggerating. What has happened is there's been a panic at the stores to buy things that people think are important. And chicken noodle soup is important. The coronavirus, which I call the corona panic, is a pandemic. It's increasing in numbers and has an effect on, it's infected all continents. It has. Now, some on-air personalities have said that the coronavirus is not a pandemic. Let me read to you what Wikipedia says is the definition of a pandemic. And you tell me. You tell me whether it's a pandemic or not. A pandemic is a disease epidemic that has spread across a large region. For instance, multiple continents or worldwide. A widespread endemic disease with a stable number of infected people is not a pandemic. Further, flu pandemics generally exclude reoccurrences of seasonal flu. So what they're saying is, if the numbers are stable, it's not a pandemic. If the infection is not stable, if the infection is stable in numbers, it's not a pandemic. And generally, pandemic definitions exclude reoccurrences of seasonal flu. This is not a seasonal flu, and it's increasing in numbers. It meets the definition of a pandemic. So why is it that people are saying it's not a pandemic? I'll let you answer that, because I don't know. So, in this case, I am siding with, you're not going to believe what I'm about to say, the mainstream media, because they're warning people of the seriousness of this coronavirus. Now, those who are debating the theories of its origin and purpose, who done it, why they did it, whether it's going to infect the Democrats, the Republicans, the stock market, whether it's going to correct the stock market, all of that can be true. But that's a waste of time, because we here at USA Prepares need to prepare. It's kind of late now, really. But I wouldn't waste a second in getting the food supplies that you need. I wouldn't waste a second. I'd get right on the stick. Shame on you for not having already done it, because we've been telling you. We've been telling you this is coming. We've been saying for as long as we've been on the air, about 9 years now, getting close to 9 years, that you need to prepare for everything. You know, when people say doomsday preppers, they would say, well, what are you preparing for? I'm preparing for a grid down. They'd have all kinds of things that they'd prepare for, which is silly. You prepare for everything, because everything's interconnected. Now, could the grid go down because of the coronavirus? Of course it could, because if people don't show up for their jobs, those people who work on the grid, those people who climb the power poles and fix the transformers and the wires and the insulators and the circuit breakers and the fuses, those people who repair the poles that cars crash into and trucks crash into, if they can't go to work because they're sick, the grid will start to fall apart. If those people who feed the fuel into the nuclear reactors can't show up, the grid can go down. There are all kinds of maintenance issues with the grid. I mean, it's huge. The power grid is the biggest thing that man has ever made. It's not the car. It's not boats. It's the grid. It's everywhere. It's the biggest thing. So people who are debating the coronavirus and its origins and who done it, they're wasting time in my book. And I'll be glad to challenge anyone who thinks otherwise. And if you do, we'll pay for the call. I'll give you the number right now. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. I'm deeply concerned for your safety. Going out in public is risky. Our government is suggesting that you avoid contact with the GDP. They didn't say it that way. That's my rephrasing of what they said, and they are right to do so. They are right to tell you to stay away from people, because people carry diseases. It's clear. It's clear that, boy, this ought to get me in trouble. That's okay, though. This could be my last broadcast, and that's okay, too. If you look at who's infected, now I haven't really studied it, but it appears to me that people in wealthy villages are sicker and have more incidents of the coronavirus than poor people do. Now, why is that? Is it because they hop on planes and they jet set and drill holes in the atmosphere? I think it is. Do they go to these great lavish gatherings where people are wall to wall rubbing elbows, networking with each other? across countries? I think it is. If you look at these politicians who want to glad hand and rub elbows and rub cheeks and things like that and act like they like each other and they like you, that's what's happening. There are 2 members of Congress who are in self-quarantine, at least 2. There's 2 that we know about. The government is in the business of increasing commerce because it taxes everything that moves. Cars, trucks, tires, food, even electricity. Electricity moves. It's electrons in motion. Gasoline, computers, everything. It does not want to reduce taxes. It loves taxes. Taxes pay a lot of its bills. So when the government is telling you to stay home, to self-quarantine, my term is lockdown, their term is self-quarantine, that is a reduction in the movement of things which are taxed. They really don't want to tell you that, but this is so serious that they are telling you that, and that's what you should do. Now, I would never suggest that you do something that I wouldn't do. See, that's immoral to me. You know, the do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. We're in lockdown. My family is in lockdown. Our son, who has a small repair business, told his customers, if you want it done, you have to have it done by this date because we're locked down for 30 days. Then we'll let you know. Now, is that a risk to his business? You bet it is. Because if they need it fixed tomorrow, they're going to go someplace else. He may lose that customer forever. That no whining rejoiner, that's aimed at mainstream media. It is. What happens with mainstream media is, if you listen to those guys, I'm talking about the biggest of the big, you'll hear them say something, and then they hit the reset button, and they say it again 8 minutes later. Then they hit the reset button, and they say it again 8 minutes later. So for 8 minutes, 8 minutes, and 8 minutes, they say the same thing. They just use different words to say the same thing. You might want to listen, see if you hear the same thing that I hear. So with the corona panic, people will lose their jobs. There are currently out-of-stock conditions for parts, supplies, food, bearings. Almost everything is at risk. Engine parts, transmission parts, certainly we've mentioned that weeks ago. It took literally 3 deliveries from a national tire distributor to deliver to us a set of tires. It took 3 deliveries because they didn't have all of them at one time. 3 deliveries to get a set of tires. Now we bought 6, but this is a common size tire, and it's a well-known brand. It's not some weird brand. It's a Pirelli P7. 3 deliveries across 4 days to get tires. Now, by the way, I want to mention why there are 6. If you have an all-wheel drive vehicle and you get a damaged tire, let's say you hit some road hazard and it rips the sidewall, pothole like the ones that we're not supposed to have, but they're everywhere because the government is derelict in fixing the roads everywhere. Missouri is like the most pothole-ridden state in the union, literally. So tires fail a lot around here. Well, if you have an all-wheel drive vehicle, and let's say you have 50% wear left on your tires, and one of them gets ripped. You have to replace that tire with one that's the same size, the same make, model, and amount of wear. Otherwise, you will damage the driveline, the transfer case. And that's going to be thousands of dollars. So if you absolutely have to have an all-wheel drive vehicle, by all means, go ahead. But if you don't, it's crazy to have an all-wheel drive vehicle. Because if you compare that to my old antique Mercedes diesel, it's rear-wheel drive. I can have a BF Goodrich on the left front. I can have a Goodyear on the right. I wouldn't have Goodyear, but I could. I might have a Michelin on the left rear, and I might have a Cooper on the right, and that's okay, as long as they're the same size. You know, it won't handle it perfectly, but I could do that. If you did that on an all-wheel drive vehicle, you would destroy it. Four-wheel drive is much stronger than all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is like the car version of four-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is weaker. It really is. Now, you can get away with having different mismatched tires of the same size on a four-wheel drive vehicle. It's not ideal, but you can. If you do it on an all-wheel drive vehicle, you'll destroy the transfer case. Transfer case is attached to the transmission, and it provides drive components to the front wheels. Okay, so we have these out-of-stock conditions all over the country. Why are the broadcasters not discussing how to prepare? Why? Well, I asked Mrs. Finelli that question. I was really frustrated yesterday. I was in the kitchen with her, and I said, why is it that you think other broadcasters are not talking about how to prepare in the first place? They're talking around it. They're talking about who done it. They're talking about the politics of it. But they're not talking about how to survive it. Why is that? Why? Because talk shows talk. Talk show hosts are generally not preparedness-minded. They're talkers. Mrs. Finelli is one of the brightest people I know. And she said it so simply. She said the reason they don't talk about how to prepare for this, and they haven't been warning people about this, is because they don't know how to do it. Can you imagine that? We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepare. So why do I say that? Everyone all set? Why do I ask that question? Are you all set? Are you cocked and locked? What I'm saying is, are you prepared? Are you prepared for what? For everything. Are you? And what I'm finding is that the GDP, I'm not talking about you, class. I'm not talking about our students. I'm talking about the GDP. And I'm not talking about our instructors. Why are they not paying attention? Because they're lazy. They're people who don't want to read. It's too hard. That's what TV's for. You know, it can be fed to you. You know, the people who watch the news and think they know what's going on. They have no idea what's going on. They know what they've been programmed to think, but they don't know what's really happening. Which brings me to Genesis Communications Network. I really like Genesis Communications Network. They have been very, very kind to me. This is not a commercial. This is not something that someone asked me to do. This is just the way I feel. Genesis Communications Network has offered me a position in the early days. And I was offered 1 hour a day. I was really thankful and pleased and shocked and nervous because I didn't know if I could do it. I'm not a broadcaster. I'm just a farmer. Well, shortly after that, I got a call from Tom Harmon, who was the program director. That's the position that determines who's on the air and who's not, and what the content is. You know, what not what to say, but, you know, is it going to be a program about politics? Is it going to be a program about health and medicine? Well, GCN put me on the air because they liked the content and they liked the format. They liked the long answers, the long questions, the solutions that were provided. That's what they liked, rather than rapid fire, meaningless banter. And I got a call shortly after I went on the air with 1 hour per day, 5 days a week slot. I got a call from Tom Harmon, and he said, "Hey, congratulations, you've been promoted. 2 hours a day." And I thought, okay, when does that start? And this was on a Friday. He said, "Monday." So I was really nervous. Now, what am I going to do for 2 hours? Could I actually do that? Well, that leads me to another thought. And that thought is, there are broadcasters who show up behind the microphone and they're not prepared. They just wing it. I have never, ever shown up for work unprepared. I think it's wrong. I've never shown up for work with a hangover. I think that's wrong. I've had bosses who are hungover. They thought it was okay. I had bosses who were drunks. They thought it was okay. I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay to come to work here at USA Prepares undressed. I could do this broadcast in my pajamas, but I don't. Because I think it's an insult. I think I need to look, act, and be the part. I think I need to be prepared. I think our instructors need to be prepared. That's what I expect. And maybe that's why Ricky Rocket offered me that position as headmaster of Albert Schweitzer University. Because I think he knows that I'll ride rough on those who don't perform. I expect excellence of myself too. So for me to just show up unprepared is unthinkable. It's a waste of your time. Your time. Which I respect. I respect your time. The last thing I want to do is be known as the guy, you tune into that and you're going to tune out because he wastes your time. I don't want to have idle banter. I want to teach. That's what we do. And GCN understands the value of preparing very well. Their management, their top management lives preparedness. They do. They don't just think it, they live it. And maybe that's why they've kept me on the air when others have not been kept on the air. And maybe it's because of the faculty. I think it is. I think that's what it's about. And, GCN's management has been to the Get Prepared Expo and meetups. You know, they've taken the drive from Minnesota to Missouri to come to see what we're really about. That was in the early days. That's what they did. We've got a lot more. Kyle, welcome. You're on with just me today.
Good morning, my friend. How about them Lakers, huh?
How about them? Boy, yeah. What would we do without them Lakers? Jeez, you know, I'm all upset about it. I was up all night thinking about that. I'll probably be able to. I'll probably recover, sometime mid next week from that. Well,
yeah, right. It gives this thing really seriously gives a whole new meaning to March Madness, doesn't it?
it does.
Oh.
It absolutely. Well, literally, Kyle, I was talking about the broadcast, the USA Prepares, and I don't get behind the microphone without having notes. And so for today's broadcast, I prepared, I would say maybe 6 hours. 6 hours for a 2-hour broadcast. Because the last thing I want to do is waste the time of our students and faculty. I don't want to do it. I think it's a sin to waste time. It's a sin. My mother never really said it that way, but I think she would have. Wasting anything is a sin.
The same thing we've dealt with and talked about before a little bit comes to play here. That is that normalcy bias. The GDP's normalcy bias will be their undoing. And people that want to believe, regardless of what's right in front of their eyes, that want to believe that everything is going to be okay for a long time, and we'll come back to this. Maybe we will in a year, or maybe we will in the summertime when this happens. But before that happens, you're going to have 2, 3 months, 4 months at least, even if this thing does peter out and die off in the summer. But I don't see that happening personally, and I'm trying to prepare for this thing going plumb through the year. My wife and I, we took stock of everything we had. We topped off a couple of things that we wanted to get more of, just a little bit, just for convenience sake, not like we had to have it. This is just stuff for convenience sake. So I'm with you. We could lock down tomorrow. There's no cases yet in Montana that has been reported, at least. But anyway, I do know that I know they're preparing for it, and I'm sure it will be here at some point. But anyway, I really appreciate your broadcast more than you'll ever know, and your friendship even more.
Well, Kyle, thank you for that, and I appreciate your friendship. And I was on the phone with Gwyneth last night. She called me, Gwyneth Isaacs, live in Australia. She called me and she said that there are 8 regions in Australia, and each region, we'll call them like a state, each one of them has a capital city. Sydney, Australia, is the capital of one of those regions. She said it is in lockdown now. And she said the others will lock down within a few days, next week. Lockdown. And I said, Gwyneth, you're talking about nobody in and nobody out? And she said, yes. Norway is closed, locked down. Italy is closed and locked down. What I'm trying to say, class, is those who say this is a hoax, this is a fraud, this is disinformation, this is designed to force the election one way or the other, this is not true. There are very few cases. Well, let me tell you what I do know. I know this for a fact. There are very few I'm going to call them test kits. Hospitals call them tests. There are very few test kits. And so in order for someone to test positive for the coronavirus, they have to present several factors. They have to be coughing. They have to be short of breath. And they have to have a fever of 101.4 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. So if someone is short of breath, labored breath, is coughing, and has a fever 1/10 of 1 degree lower, 101.3, that person will not be tested. So what's happening is the tests are so rare right now, regardless of what the media says, the tests are rare. I know this. Because the tests are so rare, they are being given out very judiciously, very carefully. And because there are so few being tested, the numbers are low. That doesn't mean the numbers of the coronavirus are low. That means the number of reported positives for the coronavirus test are low. I believe the numbers are way off, reported way low as compared to the reality.
Yeah, I agree with that, Vince. I think you're absolutely right. We haven't.
Kyle,
go ahead,
Kyle. I know you said.
Hello.
I think. Yes, Kyle. I know you said. I think you're right. Kyle, I am right. Now, I'm not patting myself on the back. I have information, and I got it from the horse. The tests are rare. Let me give you an example, and please, and feel free to continue after the break. How many tests are there how many tests are there per state? 75. 75 tests per state. Right now. That's it. They're rationed. Right now. Class, we're talking about the corona panic, and that term has not been used lightly by me. That's what this is. If you look at some of the images on the internet about what's happening in the stores, like in New York City, in the big cities, there is a panic. It's almost impossible to get toilet paper now. Seriously. Almost impossible. And paper towels. And masks. And hand sanitizer. But what about soap? There doesn't seem to be a panic about buying, bar soap. Why is that? Is it going to be okay? As I mentioned, we are in lockdown, and I'm not exaggerating. They say self-quarantine. I don't know. What does that mean? What I'm saying is we're not leaving. Now I'm trying to figure out how we can get to, plan B, another place, but 800 miles away. But, geez, it's really difficult right now because if you go to fuel your vehicle, whether it be gas or diesel, a typical vehicle might go 200-300 miles. Truck might go 400 miles on a tank. And you need fuel. You're going to have to somehow get that nozzle from the gas pump into your tank. You're going to have to touch something. You're going to have gloves, and that's a good idea. Are you going to touch the touchpad? Enter in your zip code when your credit card says, please enter zip, then press enter? Are you going to use cash and touch cash and get change back? There's a problem. Kyle?
Yeah, I completely agree, Vince. It's gonna. I had a couple of really fortunate things happen. I couldn't believe the price of propane, Vince, here in the middle of the winter was so low. The other day, we had a propane tank guy show up to do my neighbor, and I noticed, and I asked him because I paid even in the middle of summer last year, I paid $1.59. And it was only $1.74 right now. And so I asked him, I just said, hey, you got enough in there to top me off while you're here? And sure enough, he did. I figured for that price, it's better to have it and not need it and pay a little more than to not have it. And then of all things, we have a lot of chickens. And we were fixing to have to buy feed. Well, there was a guy on Craigslist that it was moving, and he was in a town about 80 miles from me. But anyway, he had 2,000 pounds of organic chicken feed for $200. Come and get it.
Wow.
I like to fell over. I told my wife, I said, we're going to scrounge up the money and go get that right now. And so we did. We drove there that night. And I didn't see it till 5:00 in the evening, but organic chicken feed for $200, and they're in 8 sealed waterproof barrels that he paid $40 a piece for them, but he just needed them gone. I thought, thank God, you know what I mean? Because that gives us enough food now for our chickens for at least a year, all in one fell swoop. You know, it's just people have to look for things, but there's other people out there that don't have a clue that's part of the GDP that will help you survive, you know?
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
Anyway.
That's absolutely right. And Kyle, what you're saying is what we do here. We have a bunch of barrels, and we buy them, and they had food in them. And so we buy them from a company that takes the food out of them and makes other products with the contents. And literally, so it's not paint, it's not diesel, it's not additives, it's none of that. It's just food and ready to eat food. And we buy those barrels, and they have removable lids with a band. So you flip this little locking lever. You can remove the band and then remove the lid. So what we do is we store dog food, cat food, chicken feed, cow biscuits, all the kind of things that mice would just love to get to and damage the packaging. That's what we do. Kyle, do you have anything else?
No, that's it, Vince. I'll hang on. I'll just listen on after.
Okay, I'm going to unload. I'm going to unload on what's really happening with the corona panic. Kyle, thank you so much for being with us.
You bet.
Class, I've been talking about the corona panic, and I do not use that term lightly. And anyone who is not, I can even use the word panic. Anyone who is not panicking about this is not really paying attention. Now, some people would say, "Oh, you don't need to panic. You need to stay calm." Well, let me say it this way: you need to take action right now. Right now, it's really, really late in the game. Now, I've mentioned so many times that you need to get some supplies, and they're really simple: cans of beans, corn, green beans, baked beans, pasta sauce, dried bean kinds of soups, all kinds of things that I've mentioned, powdered milk, and so forth. So I've already said it. I've said it many times. And I'm really kind of stunned. Really stunned. And this is the kind of thing that's going to be damaging to me being on the air, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because I think you need to know this. A few days ago, I called a guy who has a radio show. And I said, hey, and this was about an hour before the broadcast. I said, hey, how's it going? What are you going to be talking about tonight? And the answer was, I don't know. Really? So to myself, I was thinking, it's, maybe an hour before broadcast time. And you don't know. Huh. I know days ahead, weeks ahead, what I'm going to be talking about. Of course, breaking news has an impact on that. But I know what I'm going to talk about. And I said, well, if you'd like, I can join in and, I might be able to help out. And he said, what do you have in mind? Well, I said, well, talk about preparing for what to do with this corona panic. He said he wasn't interested. So I said, okay, then I'm not your guy. Thanks very much. Have a great show. See ya. True story. By the way, that might get me fired. Not from GCN, though. By me saying that. What I'm trying to tell, I said this is the big story. This is it. This is real. But he didn't want to talk about that. He didn't want to talk about how to prepare. In Italy, which is not a third world country, there's a hospital that's running at 2x, 200%. Twice as many patients as they can handle while doctors and nurses are getting sick. When you think of Italy, you can think of Leonardo da Vinci, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati. Those are the products of genius, right? There's a hospital in Italy that's so overwhelmed by the coronavirus that they've stopped treating heart attacks and strokes. Elective surgery has been canceled. There's no reason to go to the hospital in Italy unless you want oxygen. That's all they're providing. Oxygen. The things that the hospital normally does, they can't do because they're overwhelmed with the corona panic, the coronavirus. So what do you do? Nothing different from what we here at USA Prepares have been saying for about 9 years. Prepare. But now it's really late in the game. For those of you who have prepared, congratulations. You have passed the class. For those of you who have not prepared, there are only a few reasons why you can say you haven't prepared. And the only one that's acceptable is you were born yesterday. That's the only reason. You can say, I don't have any money. Is that really true? Do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you go buy cups of coffee at the gas station or Starbucks? Class, you can't believe anything anyone says today, including me. You can't. People lie, they obfuscate, they mislead, they confuse. And I've decided that I'm going to do something that I really haven't done in the past here at USA Prepares. When Art Bell and I had a policy, and that was we didn't attack our instructors here at USA Prepares. Art Bell called them guests. He never said to his guests, have you lost your mind? That's nuts. He never said that. And I haven't either. But I'm revisiting that policy. Because I've heard people say things that, frankly, that I disagree with. And I bite my tongue. And I hope, I trust, that our class knows what my position on things is. I hope you know what my position is. And you can probably see the smoke coming out of my ears when people say things that I totally disagree with. I received a communique, and I mentioned this before, from a medical office saying, we're doing everything we can to protect you and keep you healthy. The title of that communique is, You Are Protected, ! Of course, that's not true. Are the employees of that medical office avoiding supermarkets? Are they not allowing their children to go to school? Are they not visiting family members? Of course not. They are. So they're not doing everything they can to protect you and keep you healthy. That's doublespeak. Doublespeak is designed to have you think one thing, and when it's really not exactly that. This virus is spread by contact and bodily fluids. It's a killer, and you should treat it as one. As I mentioned, our family and our farm is on lockdown. We've suspended all medical appointments and all other appointments. We are not repairing cars, trucks, and equipment for customers nor friends. This is a direct contradiction to the actions of others who think this is no more dangerous than the common cold. Do you really think that I would shut off income to our family for something as mild as the common cold? When you hear that some famous person is being tested for the coronavirus, you can be quite sure that he or she has it. Why? Because the test kits are in such short supply, only patients who present all the symptoms, the cough, the persistent cough, the labored breathing, and a fever of a 101.4 or higher will receive the test. It's almost a certainty when that test is given that it's for confirmation purposes. It's like, this one really looks like he has the coronavirus. I guess we will send them down for the test. Now, in Missouri, there's a plan. There's a plan for testing. This plan is a drive-through operation. Think of it like, going to McDonald's. And you pull up to the window and you get the swab and you swab and you put the swab back in the container and then you hand it back to the window. That kind of an operation. Why is that? Because when you call the hospital and you say, we got one that's really sick, and what are the symptoms? Oh, persistent cough, shortness of breath, labored breathing, hypoxic, turning blue, and a fever of 101.4 or higher. They're going to send you to the drive-through clinic for testing. And then the test will be the swab, and it'll be sent off. And it takes 3 to 4 days to get the test back. Believe it or not, hospitals are really worried about hospitals. You walk in there with a coronavirus, you can infect them. They are really concerned. I know this. Hospitals are really concerned that people are going to walk in, through any door and just show up. The side door, the back door, walk in the door where the guard is not stationed. And just walk in and infect the hospital. We discussed the figures about 75 test kits per state in our area, in Missouri. Now, it may be different in other areas, but that's about what it is here. And I'm using the word rationed. I think they're rationed because there's so few kits. We discussed the insanity of spring break in Florida, California, and Mexico. It's a drug and alcohol-fueled orgy. And stupid parents let their stupid children attend them. Doctors' offices even refer to looking forward to seeing their patients after spring break. Are they saying go out and get your venereal disease and come back, for your checkup? Is that what they're saying? So, some hospitals are not advising their medical staff to stay away from spring break. Some suggest using caution. I know this. Hospitals have not banned spring break. They may ask an employee to tell them where they've been. But the employee can say, none of your business. I'm not going to tell you. So medical families, medical professionals have members of their family who are going to attend spring break. And then they're going to come home and be in the same house with mom and dad and brother and sister and grandma and grandpa, that kind of thing. This is real. What I'm telling you is absolutely true. And there is no edict that says you will not do stupid things. You will not go on spring break. You will not go to Florida and yuck it up with a bunch of people you don't know and possibly bring a disease back. Twerk and rub bodies and whatever else they do. Swap spit. Do you think these young people at college age really understand what's going on? They're going to bring it home. They're going to bring it to mom and dad, and then mom and dad are going to bring it to the hospital. Or mom and dad are going to go visit their parents in the nursing home. If they can get into the nursing home. Hospitals do not want their employees to get sick and die. Hospitals are concerned about them first, then you. And hospitals are not prepared for this. We'll be right back. Okay, class, this morning's Dow opened up pretty high, and since then, since they pumped it up for the opening bell this morning, it's lost 1,130 points. Now, it's not below yesterday yet, but it's working its way down to go below yesterday's close. They can't keep it up. This is the plunge protection team in action. So we've been telling you for years what to do. This is it. This is the big one. This is the corona panic, the corona pandemic. Anyone who tells you that it's not a pandemic is lying to you. The president is correct. If you're over 60 years old, don't risk being in public. I know some smart people. I've talked to them, and they've taken time off from work because of this. They're going to wait a couple weeks and see if they're going to go back to work. So they've taken vacation. And that was a prudent thing to do. We've stopped our contact with people. The gate's locked. I mentioned that. No more meetups. No more Get Prepared Expos. No more restaurants. No more casual shopping. We make our own bread, cook our own meals, raise our own food. And I'm just working out how to figure out how to move 800 miles. I don't know how to do it yet. The panic that I've been warning you about has started. It's here. And here's some examples. Norway, this is as of yesterday. Norway is shut down. Italy is shut down. Disney closed the California theme park in Anaheim, California. Maryland and Ohio canceled schools. The Australian Formula One Grand Prix will have no spectators. NCAA canceled March Madness. The National Broadcasters Convention in April is canceled. Over 100,000 were expected. Over 1,800 exhibitors. Well over 100 countries would be in attendance. They've canceled it. This is at the last minute, right? New Jersey, in some areas, is cutting off liquor sales at nightclubs at 10 p.m. So, no all-night drinking in some parts of New Jersey. New York City closed Broadway and all events with over 500 people. They are saying that whatever your capacity is, it needs to be half of that. And it will be, because people aren't going out. And some broadcasters are calling this a hoax, a false flag, etc. Really? Canada's First Lady tested positive for the coronavirus. She and the Prime Minister are under self-quarantine. Ohio banned gatherings of more than 100 people. Ohio. U.S. Major League Soccer is suspended. Goldman Sachs asked its New York City employees and workers to work from home. The President Trump campaign asked its workers to work from home for the next few days. Disney also closed the theme park in Paris, France. An American Airlines pilot tested positive for the coronavirus. What does that mean? Well, it means that he breathed the same air as all the others on the plane. The stewards, the stewardesses, and the passengers. Co-pilot, everybody. Navigator, they all breathe the same air. It gets recycled 11 times. You have to be nuts to get on an airplane today. Or you have to be an avid risk taker. Or it's got to be really, really important for you to do this. Houston, Texas closed its schools. 200,000 students won't be going to school until March 30th. Italy and Spain have banned short selling. What's short selling? Well, that's when you believe that the price of a security is going to go down. So what you do is you sell it at 100 and you buy it at 50. That's when you believe the market is going down. And as I'm looking at the market, it's been going down, 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 and now it's just starting to turn around and go back up. I wonder who's pulling these strings. Anybody who thinks that prosperity is right around the corner has lost his mind. The government of Maryland, the state of Maryland, has issued an executive order to put the National Guard on a higher state of readiness. In Italy, Catholic churches are starting to shut down. In Rome, they have shut down. In New York City, the mayor declared a state of emergency. Schools will remain open for now, but PTA meetings and other activities are canceled. New York State has declared a state of emergency. California has banned gatherings of more than 250 people. Slovakia completely shut down its borders. International airports are closed. Land borders are closed. The Czech Republic and Hungary declared states of emergency. Major League Baseball is now delayed 2 weeks. National Hockey League is pausing for the season. The list goes on and on. This is real.